All right, so we are here today to talk about playground safety and supervision. This is such an important topic. I am so happy to see so many people that are joining us for the live version of this class. If you're unable to attend the live version, I hope you will take the recording back to your school family and share it with as many people as possible. We have so many incidents that happen on the playground. Some of them could be avoided. Sometimes they can't be avoided. We're going to talk about that right there as we kind of move on. But I'm so happy that all of you are interested in this topic and you're joining me today. Before we get started, let's just go over some of our housekeeping items that we like to discuss at the beginning of all of our trainings. This particular training topic has been approved by TechPEDS, the Texas Early Childhood Professional Development System, and has been verified. So if you enter your personal TechPEDS Workforce ID number on your Tim the Trainer portal before you complete your assessment at the end of the webinar, your training certificate will automatically be uploaded into your TechPEDS account and verified. That makes life so much easier with childcare licensing and Texas Rising Star. That is super awesome right there. Again, make sure that your personal TechPEDS Workforce ID number is on your profile before you complete your assessment. And when I say automatically uploaded, it usually goes the next morning, but within 24 hours it shows up right there. If you do have any questions about the training material today, those of you that are participating live, then you can ask your questions or have your comments over in the comment section. Or you can always contact us from our website, timthetrainer.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can send a direct message. You can email, you can call our training hotline. We are there for you to answer questions, to provide additional information beyond the scope of the training material, or to provide additional resources in a timely manner. Also, just a very quick reminder, a big trend with childcare licensing and Texas Workforce Commission these days, per the childcare minimum standards, trainings must be completed in a reasonable amount of time. So basically that means you should not be completing more clock hours of training than the total number of hours worked in that particular day. You definitely cannot complete more clock hours of training in a single day than there are waking hours in that day. Once again, we want you to be in compliance with childcare regulations and Texas Rising Star. This is something that you are responsible for managing. If you run into a situation where childcare regulations or Texas Rising Star does not accept your training certificates because you've completed too many clock hours in a single day, that's on you, all right? It's not something that we can manage here at Tim the Trainer. And then also just a gentle reminder, the definition of instructor-led training can be found in the Childcare Minimum Standards, 746.123, number 39. We always want you to refer to your local childcare regulations inspector or Texas Rising Star mentor for their interpretation of instructor-led training. Our objectives today. So what are we going to talk about here for the next hour? We want to identify Texas licensing standards related to playground safety and daily equipment inspections. We're going to talk about some effective supervision strategies to prevent injuries and to ensure children's safety during outdoor play, and to recognize common playground hazards and outline procedures for addressing and reporting them promptly. Those are the three learning objectives that I have for this 1 hour training. Now, I want to go ahead and just say this, all right? And I want y'all to kind of have this in the back of your head as we kind of go through this material, especially those of you that are directors, administrators, owners. This is really important for you. It's important for everybody. Look, we are responsible for keeping children safe while they are participating in outdoor play on the playground. There are a lot of things that we can do to ensure children's safety, but we also have to recognize that, things happen, right? And it is very common for children to get hurt on the playground, and there's absolutely nothing the adult could have done to prevent it. I always say this: bad things happen to good people. Children fall. You got to think about the laws of gravity. What goes up must eventually come down, right? Literally, y'all, this is so crazy. 10 minutes before we started this webinar, I was having a conversation with one of the attorneys that I work with to support licensed childcare facilities. And they just got a phone call this morning with a child that was injured on a playground, pretty significant injury. And again, it was just one of those things that happened. There was nothing the program could have done to prevent it. So, with that being said, having good documentation of proper training, having good documentation of policies and processes that are implemented and followed are going to be critical to support you in these types of situations where, the child just lost their momentum, they lost their grip, they tripped over their own 2 feet, and they fell and they injured themselves on the playground. All right? Without proper training, without policies, without processes, it's really difficult to defend yourselves in these types of situations. All right? Now, that's in those unforeseen circumstances. We also have a lot of times where we can prevent playground injuries and incidents with proper supervision, with proper engagement, with daily safety checks, monthly maintenance checks. There are a lot of things that we can do to ensure a safe playground experience. The benefit of this particular training, we want to make sure that participants will gain the knowledge and skills needed to maintain a safe and compliant outdoor play environment, reduce the risk of injuries, and ensure supervision that promotes children's well-being and meets the child care minimum standard expectations. And I'm going to add to that right there that not only are we meeting it, but we are exceeding it. All right? We want to understand the importance of adequate playground supervision. Most of our significant events occur when children are outside. But what we tend to see is when caregivers take children outside is when the caregiver, loses focus, right? When in reality, when you take children outside to the playground, you should be the most focused, the most engaged, the most aware of what's going on with the children, all right? It is definitely not a time to relax and let your mind wander, all right? You got to be totally in it whenever you're out there on that playground. Let's take a quick moment to talk about standards and regulations. What is required by child care licensing when it comes to outdoor play? So in the child care minimum standards, whether you're in the state of Texas or you're in a different state, every state has guidelines on minimums on outdoor play. In Texas, daily opportunities for outdoor play for all ages is required as weather permits. Now remember, you get to define weather permits in your particular program. It's going to be based on shade. Do you or do you not have shade? It's going to be based on climate. What climate are the children familiar with? But you get to determine weather permits. Make sure that's in your policy manual. You are required to take infants outside every single day. Now, the amount of time that you're going to keep an infant outside is based on how much that individual child can tolerate, all right? Your toddlers, so your 18 months through 36 months, They go outside for 60 minutes per day, so that can be 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon. Your preschool and pre-kindergarten age children, also 60 minutes a day, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon. Now, I just want to give a reminder right here that your preschool and pre-kindergarten age children must have 90 minutes of physical activity each day. So moderate to vigorous physical activity. So if you're taking the children outside, they can get moderate to vigorous physical activity when they're outdoors, but that's only 60 minutes a day. If they're required to have 90 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity, that means you're going to do 60 minutes outside and then an additional 30 minutes in the classroom for the total of 90 minutes per day. This has become one of the top deficiencies in the child care minimum standards. A lot of people are missing that additional 30 minutes of physical activity that you need to include there. So make sure you've got a good process in place to ensure that those children are getting the total 90 minutes of moderate to vigorous active play, the 60 minutes that you're doing outside, and then the additional time that you need to add outside. So I want to ask y'all a question right here, and those of you that are participating live, if you're willing to type into the comment screen, I would love to get your responses right here. Those of you that are watching the recorded video, just kind of follow along with us right here. But in your opinion, okay, from your version of reality, what distractions prevent us from properly supervising children on the playground? What is it that you're seeing? Whether it's in your particular program or incidents that you're aware of in your neighborhood or your area. But what distractions are preventing us from properly supervising children on the playground? What do y'all think? If you want to share that into the comment section right there. One thing I like to look at is what we call going to the weeds, right? It's what's going on in your own inside head, our internal thoughts, right? And we tend to get out there and we know that the expectation is to properly supervise and engage the children while outside, but then we get out there and we go to the weeds. And our own inner speech starts thinking about, all these other things that are going on, or what's going on at home, or what's going on at school. And we lose our focus, all right? We may be physically present on the playground, but mentally, we're out in the weeds. So one big thing with playground supervision is that willingness that when you find yourself in the weeds, you got to bring it back in and get back to being focused on the children and their safety and their engagement. To me, I think that's one of the biggest distractions that we see is the mental, going out into the weeds right there. So yes, I see a lot of people also commenting, and I'm going to say this is probably my number 2 as well, the adults visiting with other adults. So rather than being focused and engaged with the children, they are focused and engaged on each other. And not only focused and engaged on each other, but a lot of times having extremely inappropriate conversations with the other adults, and the children can still hear this, right? But again, their focus is not on the health and safety of the children. It's on that juicy gossip that's being spread out on the playground. So I see a lot of you commenting, another teacher, another adult. And sometimes it's not another teacher. Sometimes it's the parent or guardian that's dropping off or picking up, and they see the opportunity for you to just sit there and visit and they want to spill all their drama and garbage, and they want to get you engaged, and they take your focus away from the health and safety of the children. And this is where we have to practice a lot of professionalism, that, we're able to say, hey mom, hey dad, hey grandma, would love to have this conversation with you. However, right now, I am fully focused on the health and safety of the children on the playground. Okay? Can't have this conversation right now. And you want to be able to practice that. Okay? For sure. Y'all, this is so funny. Like almost every single comment on the chat screen is adults talking to other adults. Yeah. So we're very, very aware of the most common distraction out there. But we keep doing it. Why do we keep doing it, right? Yes. Oh, and I love this comment right here. Remaining stationary, all right? And just that idle chit chat. And we're going to talk about zoning, and we're going to talk about moving around the playground here in just a little bit. But I think this is a really fantastic comment right here too, remaining stationary. It's like the more the children move, the more the adults should be moving, right? You got to be one step ahead of them the entire time. Oh, I see one comment right here, sitting down and not interacting. I will tell y'all that probably for the last 25 years, I have always had it in my handbook that sitting down on the playground is strictly prohibited. And I've had that listed as grounds for immediate termination. If I walk outside and find a teacher sitting down, they're out, all right? Because again, you cannot properly supervise, you cannot keep the children safe, and you cannot be engaged when you're sitting down. You've got to be mobile, and you've got to be ready to intervene at a moment's notice. And you cannot intervene when you're sitting down. I made the comment about the laws of gravity earlier. What goes up must eventually come down. One of the attorneys that I work with for consulting, they always talk about anytime a children's feet are leaving the ground, whether they're climbing or jumping, you need to be within arm's reach of that child, because eventually they're going to have to come down, right? Now, I know that you're like, I've got 15 children on this playground. How can I be within arm's reach of all of them? I get it. That's pretty impossible to do. But you get my point, right? You get my point that you got to be present. That proximity and where you position yourself is so extremely important, all right? But you can't do it sitting down for sure. All right. Someone is saying watches and phones. Well, I don't really understand this comment when you say watches and phones, because when I look at general responsibilities of personnel, it's right there in black and white in the child care minimum standards. But while supervising children and counted in child staff ratio, you must be free from personal use of electronic devices. So if we have standards saying you must be free from personal use of electronic devices, including cell phones, watches, all this stuff, then why should they have the cell phone on the playground? Because now we've got two deficiencies that could possibly come up. All right? So yes, but I do agree with you, the comment about watches and cell phones. Y'all, we've had this standard for 24 years now, and it still remains one of the hardest things that programs manage, all right? So need to kind of really have a zero tolerance on that. Now, I actually had this in my notes to talk about on a different slide, but since it's coming up now, I want to go ahead and talk about it now. Another huge trend that we are seeing with supervision related significant events is not so much the personal use of electronic devices, but now the script has changed to business use of electronic devices being one of the biggest distractions with supervision. All right? Because a lot of people are using tablets for parent communication, right? And our teachers are more focused on updating those tablets and communicating with the families than they are properly supervising the children. And this is becoming a huge issue, not just here in Texas, but across the entire country. Look, I understand that those parent communication applications are really popular and their parents are loving it, but they are not your number one priority. The health and safety and engagement of the children is your number one priority. All right? Those tablets are way down on the priority list. So we're getting to the point now where we're having to create some very specific and detailed policies and processes on the appropriate use of tablets or electronic devices used for parent communication, and how it could distract from supervision and when it can, or when it should and should not be used. All right. So I hope y'all are having these conversations in your program. I'm seeing a lot of programs change their policies and processes on the use of these applications, but we're seeing a lot of events right here. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, very good. So I think that we've got a good understanding of what's preventing us from properly supervising children on the playground. Those of you that are directors and administrators, take this activity back to your school family. All right. When you're having a staff meeting, when you're doing mentoring and coaching, ask the adults, what do you think is preventing us from properly supervising the children on the playground? And let's get their answers right there. Okay. Someone is saying they still use, paper daily reports. I love it. Good old-fashioned paper. Love it, love it, love it. All right. When we talk about supervision on the playground, we want to make sure that we're zoning out, that teachers spread out to all corners of the playground, depending on the number of adults that you have out on the playground, and map this out. Plan ahead. Be proactive right here. I have done this many times with programs that I have supervised where, I've actually taken a diagram of the playground and I have indicated if there's only one adult present on the playground, you need to be zoned in this general area. If there are two adults on the playground, one is zoned in this area, one is zoned over here in this area. If there's three people, and map it out. Now that doesn't mean that you stay in your zone, because you need to move. Your proximity should be based on what is needed for that group of children at that time, right? But, sometimes we got to map it out and kind of build those boundaries, build those expectations right there. Okay? So look at that right there. Before you take children out onto the playground, be aware of the blind spots. Look, every playground has a blind spot. I don't think in my career I have ever visited a school that had the most perfect playground. You're always going to have blind spots. You need to be aware of this. When you're doing new hire orientation, when you bring a new employee into your school family, you should be having these conversations about the playground, what the supervision expectations look like, and identifying those blind spots. If you're physically able to do so, I always recommend that you get down on your hands and knees and crawl around your playground on your hands and knees. The reason for this is to see the playground from the child's version of reality. Okay? And we have to be able to see things from the child's version of reality, from their point of view. Sometimes that means you got to get down to their level. Otherwise, you're not going to see the world from their point of view unless you get down there. So if you're physically able to do that, that's a great idea for you. But be aware of those blind spots. Make sure that they're covered. If you do have a situation where there is only one adult on the playground, or in times when you do have multiple adults, the primary person should always be positioned closest to the door that enters and exits the playground. Not only should you be responsible for the health and safety and the engagement of the children on the playground, but another big part of playground supervision is the awareness of who is entering and who is exiting the playground. You know, we see this a lot of times, especially in the afternoon, when parents are coming to pick up their children. They'll just walk out onto the playground, get their kid, and walk out. And then all of a sudden you're like, where did Tiffany go? Right? Well, you know, you're sitting here looking for Tiffany and her mom picked her up 15 minutes ago. And y'all, this happens all the time. So that awareness of who's entering and who's exiting the playground is really critical. Definitely, we don't want a child entering the building by themselves, wandering away from the playground. So once again, always make sure a primary person is positioned near that area so that you can monitor, you know, who's coming in and who's coming off of the playground. With this being said, we don't ever want to prop doors open. When you prop a door open, whether with a door prop or a door stop or with a chair or something like that, y'all, that is just an invitation for the child to exit, right? They're going to see that opening and they're going to go for it. Not to mention the structural damage that you could be creating with that door being propped open. But for safety reasons, same thing with people entering the playground. In the event of a significant event, right? We want to be able to monitor who's coming in or out or prohibit who's coming in or out, all of these type of things. But the biggest item is propping a door open is an invitation for a child to shoot through it, all right? And then, of course, make sure that you are maintaining ratios at all times. Now, when a class or when a group goes outside onto the playground, ratios do not change. So you are going to continue to maintain normal classroom ratios when outside. Now, if your program is able to reduce ratios and run a lower child caregiver ratio when you're out on the playground, good for you. That is a beautiful thing. We don't see this happen very often just because of staffing, but if you do have multi-age specialists, that's what I like to call floaters. I'm trying to get y'all to stop using the word floater because I think that it's a misinterpreted term. Instead of calling that person a floater, they are a multi-age specialist. Okay, there's a lot of skills that have to be practiced to be in that position. But if you do have some of those extra people that can go outside to assist on the playground, the more, the better. Now, if you do have multiple groups that are going out onto the playground at the same time, then you want to be very cautious of the average age of the entire group or the combined groups, and make sure that you're maintaining those ratios appropriately. You know, when we look at what playground time is not, all right? Playground time is not a break time for staff, okay? So we've kind of already discussed that with some of the distractions right there. It is not a time just for the adults to take the kids outside and say, all right, everyone, run, 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 blow off some steam. All right, blow off some steam. That's not what it's for, and it is definitely not a time for staff planning. I have had many situations where I have had to coach and consult schools that had significant events, because the teachers were out there writing their lesson plans under a shade tree instead of supervising and engaging with the children. Definitely should not be happening right there. All right. You should be focused, engaged, interacting, and participating in everything that the children are doing. All right. So once again, when we're talking about new hire orientation, when we're talking about annual training and coaching with, your school family, I think it's important for you to kind of have this conversation about what playground time is not, right? So we need to talk about that too. I see the comment over there about the multi-age specialist. Man, I am so hot on that topic right now. We get people that call our office all the time and they're like, we don't understand why we have to have all this training. We're just a floater. And I'm like, really? Do you know how many skills are needed to be able to go into multiple different classrooms? You have to know what's developmentally appropriate for every age group. You've got to know age restrictions. You've got to have connections and relationships with all of these children. Like, in my opinion, your strongest teachers should be those quote unquote floaters, or what I'm trying to get y'all to use, multi-age specialists, because that's a lot of skills. It's a whole lot of skills. All right, anyways, different training right there, different training. All right, let's kind of talk about interactions when on the playground right here. All right, always focus on having those quality, positive interactions when on the playground. Remember, you're outside and people from the neighborhood, people from the community can see you and hear you. We talk a lot about social media, and, when especially some of these neighborhood, parent group, Facebook pages, people will judge a licensed childcare center that they have zero relationship with just off of what they see and hear from the playground. Okay? You are on such a spotlight right there. So, we need to keep that in mind. But most importantly, you've got children that are using their right brain when they're out on the playground. So they're running, they're climbing, they're using their outside voice, a lot of right brain activity happening out on the playground. Right brain is exactly where you need to be when it comes to engagement and relationship building. Okay? You're going to build more meaningful connections with that child when you're participating in right brain activities. And that is what playground time is all about. All right? So those quality positive interactions are your opportunity to participate in joint attention, to create meaningful connections, to create lasting feelings, right? People will always remember how you made them feel, and so many opportunities right there on the playground. So that's why, again, when I say engagement, the teacher needs to be participating right there with everything that the kids are doing, because the impact that you're making, we can talk about this for 6 hours, right? So really good stuff right there. With that being said, watch your tone of voice, all right? We tend to want to speak louder and sometimes more aggressively when we're out on the playground, all right? But the adult assertive voice is something that is important to practice, but that tone of voice, y'all, tone is everything, right? It's not what you say, it's how you say it, all right? And you're building respect, you're building trust, but most importantly, you're building that felt sense of safety. And we got to really be conscious of this when we're out on the playground, all right? Interactions never stop. They are ongoing. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, the playground is the perfect opportunity to connect with that child. Make sure that those interactions are positive, they're productive, they're educational. It's a great time to talk about those key experiences. What are the children learning? What did they learn earlier that day? What are you going to be doing later on that day? Because again, we're in right brain mode, right? Right brain. Self-regulation, self-control comes from the right brain. So the more we can interact and teach and have these meaningful conversations in a right brain hemisphere, it's the best. All right. So that's why I'm saying we're going to play games. We're going to incorporate curriculum. We're going to take curriculum outside. Really good stuff right here for you to keep in mind. All right. Some tips for a safe outdoor play. All right. When taking children outside, it is everybody's responsibility to pay close attention to the age restrictions on each piece of playground equipment and supplies that you take out onto the playground. It is not just the director, it is not just the administrator or permit holder. Be familiar with the age restrictions. Some of you have multiple pieces of equipment in a single yard, that some pieces of equipment are appropriate for some children but not other children. When we talk about significant events and we talk about injuries, you do not want a child getting severely injured on a piece of equipment that is not age appropriate for that child. Okay? If this goes to litigation, it is not good. All right? So be familiar with that. You should have a placard on your playground equipment that's going to tell you the age restrictions. If not, it's pretty easy to find this on the internet. Always keep in mind the child's age and development when planning out activities outside. It's the same thing with planning activities in the classroom. We're not just going to look at the chronological age of the child. We need to look at the developmental age, the physical age, the social age, the emotional age. We're going to take all of this into consideration when planning how to properly supervise that individual child outside. And then also taking into consideration any special care needs and any modifications that may need to be made for a specific child in your program. All right? So again, this kind of takes me back to, a conversation just a little bit ago. You cannot just open that playground door and say, go. All right? There are lots of things to take into consideration so that you can adequately supervise each individual child. Their age and development is critical right here. And be excited. When you take children out onto the playground, be an active participant. Be excited about that. Have that positive attitude towards outdoor play. Remember, your state dictates the child's state. So the state of the adult dictates the state of the child. If you are excited about outdoor play and playground time, you're going to download that state to the child. If you're moaning and groaning and complaining and whining, right, for whatever reason, guess what? That's exactly what's being downloaded to the child. All right, and it's not going to be a positive experience for them. So have that positive attitude right there. And hey, it's your opportunity for you to also get some physical development. Get those steps in. Get that fresh air. Get those vitamins from the sun. Get away from that screen, right? Get your mind off of all the blah, 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 blah that you see on social media. So, enjoy that time. It's a great opportunity for you. So when we go back to the teacher's role or the adult's role in playground safety and supervision, facilitate play, facilitate learning opportunities while ensuring safety. Don't judge the children's ideas. Listen to the children. Follow their lead. So many times, and especially out on the playground, they come up with some incredible open-ended games, open-ended play, and they want you to participate in that. So, follow their lead right there. It's really good stuff. And the more you follow their lead, the more relationship building you're creating. All right? Incorporate culture into the environment. Anytime you can, create that diverse experience out on the playground. Take some music outside. Take some props outside. If you have some snacks that you can take outside or a project that you can take outside, anytime you can incorporate that learning and culture into outdoor play, this is really good stuff right there. So, some of you might have the opportunity to have outdoor classrooms. I love outdoor classrooms. I thought I had a really cool outdoor classroom at one of my schools. I just visited a school up in Illinois. Last month, I did some training and coaching at a facility. Holy moly, y'all. Their outdoor learning environment blew me away. Like, it was the most incredible outdoor learning environment that I've ever seen in my career. And I wanted to stay there for like 5 days and just explore their outdoor learning environment. But when we talk about, has consideration been given to art, music, science, language, math, when outside on the playground, this school up in Illinois, like, she just exceeded everything right here. There was art going on out there. There was music, there was science, there was language, there was math, there was gardening, there was pretend play, there was, you name it. So intentional. Like, the intention that was put into this outdoor environment was so cool. Hey, we all have this opportunity. Whether you've got a 35 by 35 square foot space or you've got 3 acres, right? Make the best of the environment. But always keep adequate supervision and keep safety, right there in the front of your brain. All right. So when you're designing and planning this, keep that safety in place. But we can do that. Just a couple of other, someone's saying they want to see it now. Oh gosh, y'all, it was amazing. I'll have to send y'all, I'll find them on social media and send it to y'all if you're interested. Just a couple of regulatory items right here. We are required to do a playground maintenance check at least monthly. This can be completed by the center director or a designated person. It does not have to be done by a third party. All right. So your playground maintenance checklist can be done by the center director or a designated person. Just make sure that it's done. All right. And don't do your playground maintenance checklist based off of memory. Actually get the checklist and go outside and physically look at all of the items needed to ensure adequate safety and supervision. I could tell y'all lots of stories about significant events that have happened on playgrounds, and either the playground maintenance checklist was not done, or someone did it based off of memory, or they realized it was the last day of the month, so they just pulled out the paper and checked everything off. All right, they falsified, that legal document right there. Y'all, this is so critical. Now, what licensing really prefers is that your playground maintenance checklist is a maintenance checklist that is specific to your piece of equipment. So whoever you purchased your playground equipment from should have supplied you with a maintenance checklist that is specific to that make and model of playground equipment. You can usually find this on the internet. If you know the make and model of the playground equipment, you can usually find it on their website. If not, if you can't find it, or if you don't know the manufacturer or make and model of your playground equipment, there is a generic playground maintenance checklist. You can download this off of Childcare Licensing's website. You can see that I've got a QR code right here on the screen. I actually have a copy of this on my website, timthetrainer.com. If you go to documents, we get this request quite often, so we had it put on our website. You can use that one as well. Okay, either are fine. Licensing will accept, the one that we've got up here. But they really like it when it is specific to the piece of equipment that you have, or the equipment that you have right there. All right. This is for any, all of your environment. So your outdoor space, right? You should be doing your playground maintenance checklist on your outdoor space, whether you have equipment or not, whether it's large or small. You should be doing the playground maintenance checklist on whatever you got for outdoor space. All right? So that kind of answers that question that I see over there. But then that's not it. We also have a playground safety checklist. Now, the playground safety checklist is different than the playground maintenance checklist. The playground safety checklist, this should be done every single day before children have access to the playground. So, in the mornings, whenever you first open your facility, before that first group goes out onto the playground, someone, whether it be director or a designated person, needs to be going out and doing your safety check. Overnight, things blow onto our playground. We have neighborhood animals that come onto our playground. Let's just be honest, sometimes we have people that jump our fence and come onto our playground after hours, or somehow they get onto our playground and they leave stuff. We want to make sure that the playground is safe every single day. Just because it was safe yesterday doesn't mean it was safe today. All right? I know I've told some of you these stories, but my very first director job I ever had was in a very rough neighborhood, and every morning when we opened our school, before anyone went outside, we had to do our playground safety checks, and I would pick up alcohol bottles, beer cans, pornographic magazines, needles. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that I picked up off the playground at that school. I had to kick people off of my playground, all kinds of things. Not to mention, like I said, animals, things like that. So don't assume that just because your playground was safe yesterday that it's safe today. So your playground safety checklist that's done every day, very, very important. And once again, I've got a QR code up there on the screen. You can go to our website, timthetrainer.com, and we have a sample playground safety checklist that you can use. Definitely, if you want to adapt this to make it more specific to your play area, I think that is best. All right, so you've got that right there. All right, so very good. So that is our training today on playground safety and supervision. I hope this was helpful for you right there. We're going to go ahead and post a link in the comment section. Those of you that are wanting a certificate of completion for doing this training today, you can do the assessment. There's a $5 fee for the certificate, and so we'll get that posted right there. Those of you that are watching the recorded version of this, then the link is going to be on our website once that is posted. Again, if you have any questions about the training today, if you need more information beyond the scope of the training material, or if you need more resources to help support you, you can message us from our website in the upper right hand corner. You can call, you can email, and we will always respond to you in a timely manner to support you with being successful in your program.